A big advantage of mobile devices is that they have all kinds of sensors on board that you can use in your application. One of these is the location, like their GPS chip in there, that you can use for maps. And maps always look pretty in your app, so let's see how to implement maps in Xamarin.Forms. Now, before we dive straight into the code, of course, I'm going to show you what this video is all about. It's about setting up the map, as you can see here, on iOS and also on Android. So we can scroll around here, we can zoom out a little bit, we can go everywhere with this map. You can actually also show the user's location. So maybe this in itself is not very impressive, but it takes a little bit to set up, especially on Android. So let's go check out how to do it. Here we are, as always, in Visual Studio 2019 for Mac. On the left, you can see the XAML page that is shown on the right in the iOS simulator in this case. I'm going to implement it for Android and iOS in this video. You can also implement it for UWP, but as you can see, I'm on a Mac. So UWP is not going to work here. If you want to see a video on UWP implementation for maps as well, please let me know in the comments. Actually, so you can see it running. So let's update the title. So welcome to Xamarin.Forms is going to be our maps sample. Save that, and with the power of hot reload, you can see it update automatically on the iOS simulator. Also works for physical devices, the Android emulator, all the things. So that's really cool. Actually, the thing that I'm about to do right now is, install the NuGet packages. So that's all stuff that's not going to work while the app is running. But let's just stop it actually. And so, like I said, the first thing that I'm going to do is install the NuGet packages. So on my solution, in my Solution Explorer, I'm going to right click, I'm going to say Manage NuGet Packages, and we're going to look for Xamarin.Forms.Maps. So this is a first-class citizen from the Xamarin.Forms team, Xamarin.Forms.Maps. It always has the same version as the latest Xamarin.Forms version, basically. So be on the lookout that you install the right version for the right Xamarin.Forms version that you have installed, but that should go automatically. We're going to click Add Package, and we're going to add this to each one of our project, because if you've watched multiple of my videos and you know how Xamarin.Forms works, then you know that we have on kind of in the shared library, we have the abstraction of the map, and then on Android and iOS we have the actual platform implementation of how the map should be rendered, so the renderers. And you basically install 3 different kinds of NuGets for all these projects, so that it knows on which platform how to render a map for that specific platform. So that is how that works, and that's why you need to install these packages on all of these projects. While I was talking, the packages were installed successfully. Now for each platform, you have to do a little bit of initialization. Let's start with the easiest one, that is iOS. So let's go into our iOS project and then into the app delegate CS. Let me actually get this one out of the way. There we go. And then here, I don't know, it's probably best to do it after the forms init. We can say Xamarin.Forms.Maps. You can see it already come up here. .init, and that's it. So because Apple Maps just works basically, you don't have to go out to a special service, you don't need an API key, so you can just do init. No special API keys or whatnot are required. The only thing, of course, that is required is the permissions. So you need to ask the user permission to use their location, because the map can not only show a map, but it can also show the location of the user. So you have to request the right permissions from that user. So let's see how to do that for iOS. And of course, we have to do that in the info plist. So let's go over to the Solution Explorer again, info plist. And here we're going to add a new entry. So let's click the plus right here. And then I think you can just type the key names in here as well. There is a weird thing going on here if you want to be compatible with iOS 10 and earlier, because they switched the key at some point between iOS 10 and iOS 11. So if you want to make sure that you're compatible with all the iOS versions, then you want to enter all of these keys basically. So we're going to add the NS location when in usage. There we go. And you can see whenever you hit the right one, it will translate automatically to kind of a more friendly description that is in this editor. And here then you have to enter the message that you want to show the user, like, hey, we would like to show you a map. So, you know, you can kind of explain why you're requesting these permissions and what you're going to do with it. So the user will know that it's not for nothing, that you're not tracking them in the background or whatever, but try to explain why you're doing this. So that's one, then add another. And this is going to be NS location always and when in usage description. The names don't get any better than that. There we go. So this is kind of like you have to look up actually what all these things are specifically, but this is for when your location, so when the app is in use probably, and this is whenever you want to track like the user always and in the background. So there's different descriptions for that basically. I'm just gonna use the same message for now. But you should probably look into the details for this one and then add a proper description for that. So this is the ones for iOS 11 and up. If you want to be compatible with iOS 10 and lower, we also need to add these ones. So let's add the ones for that. Here we go. Let me just actually copy this from somewhere here off screen so you don't have to watch me type all the time. There we go. And let's add the same description here. And for the last one, let me copy that again. Here we go, the NS location, whoops, there we go. And with the same description. Okay, so now we're all set for iOS. Actually, let's just see if this actually does something. So I'm going to close this. The app delegate looks good. Now here back in our XAML, let's remove all the things that we don't need. So let's just remove this. And here we can start typing, well, let's do maps. We need to have that little thing, and I think it's a map. And then with IntelliSense, we can let that fix it for us. Well, Essentials has something with a map too, but in this case we want to use Xamarin.Forms.Maps. So let's add Xamarin.Forms.Maps, and then it will add here this XML namespace maps with the namespace that we're after and the assembly that it needs to look for. And now suddenly it knows about this map component. So that is pretty cool. And I think whenever we start running this now, we should see a map. So let's see if that actually works. And here we go. We have a map on iOS. That is pretty cool. So you can see it doesn't take a lot of effort to actually put this in here. I think this is kind of the default location, Rome, for like, you know, where the location is. You can influence the location on the simulator. Of course, you can also test this on your actual physical device and it will use your actual location. But you can also go into the simulator settings and simulate where the location is, or I think you can actually simulate a route and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. And if you then go here and we can say is showing user. So the map has a couple of these properties and we say true. See, then it also comes up with like the permissions that you want to use. So you can say allow once, allow while using the app, don't allow, well, let's say while using the app. And we should somewhere be able to see where our user is right now. Let's see if I can trigger hot reload again and it will actually show me. I don't know where our actual location is set to in this little simulator thing. It should be somewhere here. But anyway, it should work. It should work. Whenever you're going to test this, it should show the little blue dot. Maybe a location is not set in my simulator thing. We might see it show up in Android. But, you know, and if you want to know more about these maps, because there's a lot more to explore here, please let me know in the comments, of course. This video is just about setting it up, so you can get started with it, but I'm more than happy to create any more videos on these maps. Now we've got iOS done, so let me hop over to the Android emulator, let me boot that up, and we'll start implementing on Android. Now before we actually go to the code on Android, for Android we actually do need an API key to show that map. So you have to go to your Google Developer Console, create a project if you haven't done so already, and you need to get that API key for the Google Maps. Now a little disclaimer, I'm just going to show you the keys and whatnot, because before I'm going to publish this sample, I'm going to destroy the API key. So you hackermans out there, don't worry, the API keys are safe. So there's a documentation page on docs.microsoft.com which has a very good step-by-step guide on how to actually get that API key. And this fingerprints thing, I'm going to get to that a little bit later. It's important, but I'm going to skip over it right now. So I'm just going to go here with creating an API project, and in the browser navigate to Google Developer Console APIs and Services dashboard. So let's just do that. It should bring us to a new page. I'm already logged in here, and you can see I'm getting to a project that I have already set up. Just for the sake of the sample, let's set up a new project. You can do that here, and we can just say new project here in the top right. And whenever we do, we get taken to a new project, and you can see I have a lot of projects, so I have to delete a couple probably, but I'll just make this the XF Maps sample project. There we go. For no organization. So let's click create, and that's how easy it is basically to set up a project. We need to wait for a little bit for that to happen, because this is kind of similar to, you know, Azure. It has to get all the resources ready, and here we can just say select project and we'll be taken to our new project. So here we are. This is our new project. And then here near the top, you can see enable APIs and services. So let's click that. And here you can then search for all kinds of services. So you can add a lot of more services here because, you know, Google has a lot of things, and you can get all the keys and whatnot from here. Luckily, the one that we're after is right here, Maps SDK for Android. So let's just click that one. And that will be added to our project. Whenever we here click enable, you can go through the documentation here, but that's only, you know, not very applicable to us because we're doing it for Android, but we're using Xamarin. And I doubt that they have big documentation on how to do it on Xamarin for you. So I'm just going to show you that. So now we have enabled this API on this project. And the thing that you're after is here on the left under credentials. And whenever we click here, we can create new credentials, which is basically your API key. So let's click on create credentials here near the top, and you can choose different, right, for different scenarios. So you can also do help me choose, but you can create a simple API key, which might not always be the best option, or a OAuth whenever you are going to authenticate with the user's account or a service account. Well, there's lots of options. We're just going to go for the API key. And it's going to create one for us. And actually, that's it. Boom, we have an API key. We can just use this one. Now, let's click the restrict key here just to show you the options. For the sample, you know, I might not be able to implement all the options, but if you're going to use this in production, it's very important to look into this. So click restrict key, and this will take you to a page where you can give it a name so you know what the key is for, right? You can see the actual API key and what happened, so when it's created, but you want to restrict this to a certain Android app maybe, and that is where kind of like the fingerprint thing comes in that is described on the Microsoft Docs page. So you want to get that fingerprint, and you can add that here so that the API key will only work for that fingerprint. So only apps that are signed with that fingerprint can use that API key, which is very safe. And whenever someone even gets the other API key, they're not able to use it without signing it the same way, which is a completely different thing that you should store in a safe way as well. So that is something that will make it very safe. You have some other things with, like, you know, restricted for certain IP addresses, or from certain HTTP refers. You can do a lot of things here, but the thing that makes the most sense is Android apps in this case. I'm going to set it to none, and you can do some other things here as well. API restrictions. So you can select the APIs that this key can call, because I think this API key will work for a lot of services. And here you can just say, okay, I want to just have this for the Maps SDK for Android, so they cannot do any other stuff. Now also what you want to do is also described in the docs page, so find that link in the video description below, is set it up for billing, because, you know, you have a free tier which has a certain amount of requests, which is fine for the sample, but whenever you're going to run this on production, then there might be some costs, so you might want to check that out, set up that billing so that whenever you hit that limit, then maybe the services for Maps is shut off and your users will be presented with a blank screen, which is not great. So you might want to definitely check that and set that up as well. Now, actually, we'll remember that this API key is here, right? I'm just now going to go over back to Visual Studio and implement this into Android. So here we are back in Visual Studio 2019. I've booted up the Android emulator and I tried to run it, and you can see that it will give me a runtime exception. Whenever you try to access the map, it will say API key not found. So that is exactly the thing that we needed, right? So let's have a look at how to implement that. Actually, it gives you the exact thing that you need here. So check that metadata, name, API key, value, your API key is in the application element of Android manifest.xml. So let's just actually copy this key from here and then stop this from running. And then I go to my solution, close iOS for now, open Android, and I'm going to go to the properties folder and to the Android manifest, and I'm going to say open with source code editor. And I can directly edit the XML because the thing that I'm about to do is not supported by the graphical editor that we've just seen. And here we have that application node that it was telling us about. So let's just add a couple of enters here, and then we can add that key that was given to us by the exception. So we need this one with our API key. So let me just grab that here off screen from the console that we just seen and put that in here. And now we have our API key set up. So that's how easy it was, right? So that's how you enter the API key. And then whenever we go to our solution, we also need to have that little line of initialization code that we also had for iOS. So let's go into our main activity. And here we have essentials, we have forms, and so we also have Xamarin. I think it's kind of the exact same line, forms.maps .init. Only the parameters are a little bit different, so we probably have to just mimic whatever is in here. This and saved instance state, there we go. And that's how we initialize this on Android. There is one other thing that you need to do on Android, actually back in the Android manifest.xml, which is, I'm gonna again copy something from the documentation page that we've just seen. So we need to add this little line, which enables the Apache HTTP legacy library. To be very honest, I don't really know what it does. And this is only required whenever you target API 28 and higher, I think. So apparently this is something that is removed from like Android things, but is still needed by the Xamarin.Forms.Maps library. So you need to enable this for it to actually work at this time. So just copy it in here again in the application node, and it should just work. There are a couple of optional steps that you can take according to the docs page that we've just seen, which has to do with permissions. So it says like if you are running on API 22 or lower, then you might need the external write to external storage permission. So I'm just going to copy that in here, probably because it has to do with some caching with the tiles that Google Maps writes to your external storage. I don't know, and that changed somewhere along API 22. So if you're targeting API 23 or higher, then this is not required. But yeah, I mean, the permissions are something that you want to be aware of. You don't want to just ask for too much permissions. But you know, this is one that's probably used for something else as well, whatever you're doing. So this might be one that is safe for you. Also, you know, if you want to show the user's location, as we've just seen for iOS, you also want to add the permissions for that. So let's just, I'm just copying some things here. So let's just add the permissions to, which asks for the course location and the file location. So basically like the overall location and the precise location of the user. So we want to request that from the user. And of course, whenever you're going to target Android now, you also have to handle the runtime permissions. I think you can actually do that with Xamarin Essentials as well with the permissions API, but in the docs, again, they're going to describe a little bit different. So in our main activity, they say we want to add some fields here. There we go. So let me just add that to our class here and get the indentation right. Oh, it doesn't know these using Android. So there we go. And get this indentation right here. So this is request location ID. So this is probably some ID for our permissions request, and this is the permissions that we're actually requesting. So this is again the course and the file location that we've just seen in our XML file as well. And to actually start requesting these, then we need to override the onStart. So let me just put that in here. And it's going to check like if the running version is above 23. That's the only case where we need to do it. We are going to check these permissions. Do we already have it or not? And then we're going to say we're going to request the permissions. And if it's already granted, then we don't need to do anything basically. I think while scrolling here, you could also see that here we have the Xamarin Essentials things already going on. They also say in the docs that we need to do another step, which is actually in this onRequestPermissions method. So there is something which is kind of interesting if you want to combine all these things. Let me just paste it in here and we'll figure it out. So this is the code that we actually want to get in here. And there are some interesting things going on here. So if display message or not, else we're gonna do that. So I guess we just want to have, this else doesn't really go well with the messages right here. Okay, so this is basically for your scenario where you want to detect if the user has given the permissions, yes or no, and you want to display a message. So I'm not really going to implement that right now, but this might be good to check if this is the result is coming back from like the permissions. And here you can see like, hey, if the request code, so this is invoked by the OS actually, and this is going to get that request code. So this is the thing that we've seen here, right? That request location ID that is used here. So this request code, is that our request location ID? If it is, then we know that this is the permission that we are actually asking to the user. And then we're going to see, is it granted, yes or no? If it's granted, then all is good. If not, then you want to display a message like, hey, you denied the permissions that we're actually using, which is not great. So what we probably might want to do here then is also do an else for whenever it's a different request code here. For all the other request codes, we are just going through the essentials thing and call the base class, and that is kind of it. Again, I think there's a better way to do this with the essentials APIs, but this is how it is documented in the docs that we've just seen. So for Android, a little bit more extensive, but let's see, we should be able to run the code right here, and we should be able to see a map on Android as well. Here we go, our application is starting, and please show a map, please show a map, please show a map. It's taking a little bit. Oh, there we go. We have our permissions request. So allow only when using the app, which is fine. And here we can see also in Rome. So that is great. We have our map right here. We can zoom out, we can zoom in. Let's see for a little bit what we can now do is showing user. Oh, actually it is showing the user. So, but I'm not sure where the location is set for this emulator, because also on Android you have to specify a location. So I don't think I have that. Oh, there we are. There we are. We can see the user's location. Actually, I think I can just press this one and it will go to the user location. See, we're at the Microsoft campus, so that is great. That is awesome. And that is how you implement maps for iOS and Android with Xamarin.Forms.Maps. It can be a bit tricky to set it up, especially on Android. For UWP, it's a little bit like in between, so it's not as easy as iOS, but not as hard as Android. But I hope I've shown you all the bits that you need to set this up in your own project. If not, please let me know in a comment below, and I'll be trying to help you, or join the Discord server that's also down in the video description. Other than that, I would like to ask you, what do you want to know about maps? Because there's a lot of use cases. I think some people already asked for some things with maps. Now that I got this out of the way, initializing the map, I'm happy to take any other requests that you might want to see about maps. So please let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to make a video on that. For now, please just like this video if you've liked it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll be seeing you for my next video. Keep coding.